Step inside an elevator. You glance at the mirror, expecting to see your own face staring back. But this time, there's nothing. No reflection at all, just blank, empty glass. Your heart jumps. Did you turn invisible? Maybe there's a trick, a creepy optical problem, or even something supernatural. Why would an elevator mirror suddenly fail to reflect anything? That moment of confusion makes you wonder, are elevator mirrors hiding secrets we don't know? Today, we're uncovering the strange truth behind elevator mirrors and what's really going on behind that glass. So let's go back a bit. You're probably used to seeing mirrors every time you get into an elevator. They're so common, you might not give them a second thought until the day your reflection vanishes, of course. But have you ever wondered, why are there mirrors in elevators in the first place? It's such a small space. Why bother? There's a really interesting story here, and it goes back almost 100 years. The oldest elevators didn't have mirrors at all. Back then, elevators moved much slower than the ones we use now. People would step inside, maybe with a bellhop, and stare at the closed doors, sometimes for a long minute or two before reaching their floor. Imagine being stuck in a tiny metal box with no windows, no way to see outside, and nothing to look at except the back of someone's coat. You can just picture the awkwardness. Some folks even got panicky or claustrophobic, feeling trapped, anxious, desperate to get out. As buildings got taller and elevators started popping up everywhere in cities like New York, Tokyo, and London, designers realized this was a big problem. People didn't like feeling stuck or bored, and some actually refused to use elevators, preferring massive flights of stairs instead. So, what did the building owners do? They looked for ways to make elevator rides feel safer and less boring. The answer came from a pretty simple idea: add a mirror to the wall. At first, it seemed odd. How could a mirror help? But it really worked. Early elevator mirrors gave people something to look at and distracted them from the slow crawl upwards. Passengers would fiddle with their hair, check their hats, or adjust their ties. Even more importantly, the mirror made the elevator cabin feel bigger. Suddenly, that little box wasn't quite so tiny and closed in. It looked lighter, more open, less scary. That change made a huge difference. And so, by the mid-20th century, mirrors became a standard feature in elevators pretty much everywhere. But making people feel cozy isn't the only reason mirrors ended up in elevators. There's a whole world of other reasons, some practical, some psychological, and even some that borders on the artistic. Safety comes first. Just think about this. Elevators are one of the only public spaces where strangers absolutely have to share a very tight space. If someone stands right behind you, you might not even know they're there. Mirrors make it possible to see what's going on around you. You can spot that other person and be more aware of your surroundings. For security guards or concerned riders, this is actually pretty important. There's less chance of pickpocketing, harassment, or other problems. And there's more. For people who use wheelchairs or walkers, mirrors make a big difference. If you need to get in or out of an elevator backwards, you can use the mirror to see where you're going. Imagine trying to guide your wheels through a tiny door while moving in reverse. Without a mirror, you'd have to twist around or guess, which could lead to accidents. Elevators with mirrors are much safer for everyone, not just people with mobility challenges. But the magic of elevator mirrors doesn't stop there. They change how we feel, deep down. If you cram a bunch of strangers together in a tiny room, people can get nervous, annoyed, or just super awkward. But add mirrors, and people instinctively focus on themselves. Have you ever noticed passengers checking their hair, fixing their collar, or straightening their shirt in the mirror? Suddenly, everyone has something to do instead of awkwardly staring at the floor. Some psychologists say mirrors help reduce anxiety because you're not focusing on the other strangers. You're looking at yourself, which feels safer and more private, even in public. Think of it this way. One elevator rider in London once described, "There's always that odd, tense silence, but once you catch your own eye in the mirror, it's like the awkwardness just melts away." In fact, there's research showing that when people have something to look at, even their own reflection, they perceive the wait time as shorter than it really is. That's why mirrors are sometimes called the invisible entertainment in elevator rides. Mirrors can even make elevators feel bigger than they actually are. It's pure trickery, but it works. The reflection doubles the apparent space, making the cabin feel open and brighter. Designers use special lighting and large mirrors to create a modern, inviting vibe. In really fancy buildings and hotels, elevator mirrors get the star treatment. Soft lights, gold frames, even special shapes like ovals or hexagons. The result? You feel like you're in a luxury space, not just a transportation box. And elevators aren't just about looks. They're tools for behavior too. Mirrors encourage grooming. People get a last look at their appearance before stepping out to a meeting or a date. Mirrored elevator walls are probably responsible for thousands of fixed ties and smoothed flyaway hairs every day. In fact, in busy offices or city towers, you'll almost always notice one or two people using the few seconds inside the elevator to give themselves a little check. Sometimes, mirrors can spark unexpected, even funny moments. Ever had two strangers reach up at the same time to fix their hair, then realize they both saw each other in the glass? A little chuckle, an icebreaker, and suddenly the ride feels a bit less awkward. Or sometimes people use the mirror to flash a quick smile or signal to someone behind them. In places like hospitals or apartment buildings, it's not just about safety or looks. The mirror builds a tiny moment of community. Now, there's something else that comes with mirrors: social comfort. Witnesses in anonymous surveys have described how a quick glance in the mirror made them feel safer, sometimes just because it gave them a sense of control. Instead of being focused on the stranger next to them, they're able to zone in on themselves or the process of riding up or down. One woman in New York said, "When I see my reflection for those few seconds, it's like I'm alone, even if the elevator's packed." But don't forget aesthetics, too. Besides making elevators look spacious, mirrors reflect light. Even the dingiest, lowest-lit elevator feels brighter, thanks to its mirrored walls bouncing around every beam they can find. That's why you'll almost never see a total dark spot inside a modern elevator. The mirrors banish the gloom by scattering the available light in all directions. Fashion trends also played a role. In the late 1900s, mirrored elevators were a style symbol in many downtown hotels and upmarket buildings. Shiny, gold-edged mirrors signaled luxury, while more subtle, frameless designs looked sleek and modern. This style was everywhere. Some designers went a step further, adding art prints or etching patterns into the mirrors, a final decorative touch. All of these reasons are why most elevators today, especially in city towers, hospitals, and shopping malls, almost always have at least one mirrored panel. It's such a simple touch, but it's made millions of elevator rides easier, safer, and, dare we say, more stylish. But, for all the good mirrors do, sometimes things don't quite work out. People step into an elevator, ready to do a little self-check, and find the mirror isn't working the way they expected. Their reflection's faint, warped, or just plain missing. So, what's up with that? Why would an elevator mirror not reflect you at all? Could something be wrong with the glass, or the way the light works? Is it a trick, or just bad luck? The truth is, there's a whole new layer to this seemingly simple story. Elevator mirrors can go from being helpful and reassuring to downright creepy, confusing, or even dangerous when they don't behave as expected. We're about to explore the wildest cases and shadowy secrets behind these mysterious mirrors. And we're just getting started. Because behind every weird moment in an elevator, there's usually a surprising explanation. But that wasn't even the strangest part. Let's dig into the really weird part, when mirrors just don't work. You step into an elevator, expecting the old, reliable mirror to show you your own face, and nothing happens. Or maybe what you see is so warped, so foggy, or so barely there, it makes you double-check if you're really standing there at all. What's going on? First, let's tackle the most common and most overlooked problem: lighting. Have you ever noticed how different you look in the bathroom mirror at home versus a mirror in a dark hallway? Mirrors in elevators rely 100% on whatever light is around. If there's bright overhead lighting, everything feels normal. But if the lights flicker, or the bulbs are burnt out, or the entire cabin is dim and shadowy, the mirror can stop reflecting clearly. It's not broken exactly, the glass is fine, but the lack of light means you can barely see your reflection. Picture this: two identical elevators side by side. One has clean, bright fluorescent tubes on the ceiling. The other? Just a single yellow bulb way off to the right, barely cutting through the gloom. Step into the bright one, and your reflection jumps out crisp and sharp, every detail showing up. Step into the dark one next door, and you'll look like a ghost. Your features barely there, your outline faint. It's not magic, just physics and lighting. Now add another twist. What happens when the mirror itself is scratched or foggy? Over time, public elevators put up with a lot: keys, backpacks, even graffiti or cleaning chemicals. All those little scratches build up, blurring your reflection. And on humid days, a sudden rush of people can fog up the glass, just like a hot shower at home. Suddenly your face is trapped behind a haze. In an office building downtown, there was one elevator where the mirrors were so scratched, visitors joked that everyone looked like a comic book sketch rather than a real person. At a shopping mall, janitors told stories about wiping sticky fingerprints and finding they couldn't erase the blurry patches left behind. But what about the glass itself? Sometimes what looks like a normal elevator mirror is actually cheap, low-quality glass with a thin, uneven backing. Instead of a smooth, perfect surface, you get waves or dull spots that warp your reflection. High-quality mirrors use flawless glass and a thick, even coating of reflective material on the back, usually real silver or aluminum slathered on with extreme care. Cheaper ones might have thin, patchy coatings that fade in places. That's why in some elevators, a budget hotel maybe, or an older building, you might see weird stretching, warping, or total blind spots where the mirror just doesn't work. Then there's viewing angle and placement. Stand in front of an elevator mirror and everything is fine. But try moving to the side, especially close to a corner, and your reflection can fade or disappear entirely. That's because mirrors reflect whatever is directly in front of them, and if you're at a sharp angle, the light bounces away instead of back at you. Designers usually put mirrors on the back wall, where the most people will be facing forward as they enter. But put a mirror too high, too low, or partly hidden behind a corner, and people might think the mirror is defective or magic simply because they're standing in the wrong spot. For instance, in one renovated hotel in Chicago, guests kept reporting that the elevator mirrors only worked for tall people, just because the mirrors were installed a half-foot too high for average height guests to see themselves easily when walking in. It took weeks before management realized the problem wasn't with the mirrors at all, but the placement. Let's add a really fun twist: optical illusions. Some elevators feature special mirrors, like the kind designed to create the illusion of endless space, called infinity mirrors. These combine layers of glass and special lights to make it look like the elevator stretches on forever. Stand in one of these, and you'll spot row after row of ghostly reflections fading endlessly away. You might see what looks like a normal mirror at first, but then realize that your own reflection starts to blur and fade the farther you look. Or in some hotels, designers use lightly tinted glass, which only shows strong reflections at certain angles or in specific light. At night, the glass might barely reflect anything at all, leaving you wondering if my reflection's gone missing. People sometimes even call front desks, convinced there's something wrong with the mirror, just to learn it's all part of the design. Dirty mirrors add another level of frustration. Not just dirt, but condensation, fingerprints, or even a thin layer of cleaning spray that never got wiped down properly. One viral video showed a janitor cleaning an elevator mirror in a subway station. At first, the camera showed almost no reflection at all, just streaks and shadows. But the minute a clean rag and some glass cleaner sweep across, the image suddenly pops clear. Viewers posted laughs and shock in the comments, saying things like, "I thought the mirror was actually broken," or "Is that the same glass? That's wild." The physical feeling of finally seeing your own face, crystal clear after so much blur, feels almost magical and a bit unreal, like a curtain's been pulled away. Then there are rare, out-there problems. What about mirrors sabotaged on purpose? There are reports of mirrored glass panels actually being installed backward, with the reflective surface facing away from riders. This happens when someone new to the job doesn't know which side is which, especially in a rush during big renovations. In one famous case in a restaurant in Berlin, customers complained for weeks that the elevator mirror worked only for some people. Turned out the glass was installed backwards. Whoops. Now, let's talk about the most sneaky deception of all: One-way mirrored glass. Most elevators don't use this, but a few high-security buildings do. From inside, you see what looks like a regular mirror. But on the other side, a security officer can actually see into the cabin. So instead of a reflection, there's a slight tint or faded spot, giving people just enough doubt to wonder if something's off. Building security loves this trick for keeping an eye on elevator activity, but for everyday riders, it can feel creepy or just plain confusing. Even everyday design choices can affect what you see. Elevator companies sometimes use tinted or smoky mirrors to cut down on harsh reflections or to fit a building's color scheme. These mirrors might reflect less in the daytime than at night, or vice versa. You could step into an elevator at noon and see yourself crystal clear, but come back at sunset and feel like you're fading away. And if you've ever had that odd sensation of recognizing your outline, but none of your features, you know how unsettling that can be, like you're just a shadow version of yourself. When mirrors don't work, there's usually an explanation, but the brain doesn't always accept it. Some people describe thinking they were dreaming, or even worrying for a split second they'd turned invisible. One student in Tokyo wrote online, "For half a second, I honestly thought I died." Weird optical effects, dirty glass, bad lighting, and even just being in a rush can make mirrors disappear. Another person posted, "Stepped into my office elevator, looked in the mirror, and freaked out for a second. My face just vanished except for my glasses." So, what can you do about it? If you find yourself in an elevator with a mirror that's acting weird, first check the lighting. Look for burnt-out bulbs or shadows over the mirror. Next, move around and change your angle. Wipe the glass with your sleeve or a tissue if it looks cloudy. Still nothing? Maybe the glass is scratched, poorly installed, or, if you're really lucky, it's the start of a weirdly viral social media moment. But even with all these theories, there's still the excitement of not knowing for sure until you try everything. Could it be a trick of the mind? Is there a design glitch? A one-way glass? Something supernatural hiding in plain sight? The question is, why do these strange mirror moments keep happening? And are there stories of mirrors gone truly, spectacularly wrong? Let's take a look at some unforgettable real-world cases. Now it's time to pull back the curtain on what's really happening with elevators and mirrors, and dig into the science behind how mirrors actually work. It might surprise you that something as simple as a mirror has more physics going on than most people ever realize. Ready for some light-bouncing magic? First up, the law of reflection. It sounds fancy, but it's something you experience every time you look into a mirror. The law of reflection says that light always bounces off a mirror at the same angle it hit the mirror. The angle of incidence equals the angle of reflection. If you shine a flashlight directly at a hand mirror, you'll notice the beam hits and bounces back off at a matching angle on the other side. Try this yourself. Point a flashlight straight at a mirror, and you'll see the beam come straight back at you. Tilt the flashlight, and the dot moves along the wall at the same angle. That's what lets you see yourself. Light from your body bounces off the mirror and heads straight back into your eyes. You've probably tried this as a kid, right? Maybe you flashed a pocket light around your room, bouncing it off the bathroom mirror, making a dance of wiggling dots across the ceiling. That's no magic trick. It's physics in action. Imagine your hand as the source, the flashlight beam as the ray. The mirror doesn't make up its own rules. It simply follows that law, every single time, no matter how often you try. Even if you swap the flashlight for the sun on a bright morning, the dazzling reflection you catch on the wall at an angle is the same law at work. Mirrors in elevators are most often plane mirrors. Plane means flat and smooth, like a sheet of glass. These mirrors reflect light in a regular, organized way, so every feature on your face goes right back into your eyes, at just the right angle, allowing you to see an accurate image. But if you swap out that flat mirror for a curved one, crazy things start to happen. A concave mirror curves inward, shaped like the inside of a bowl. You might know these from makeup mirrors that zoom in on your face. Stand close to a concave mirror and your reflection gets huge. Your nose might look enormous. Move further away, and you could flip upside down or shrink. Concave mirrors can focus light on a point, which is why you feel amazed at those funhouse mirrors at carnivals. Here's a real-life example. The Hubble Space Telescope uses a giant concave mirror to capture light from faraway galaxies. In your bathroom, you may have a little shaving mirror that magnifies your eye so you can see every last eyelash. It's the exact same science, just on a much smaller, much sillier scale. A convex mirror, on the other hand, bulges outward like the back of a spoon. These mirrors make everything look smaller and squished, but you can see way more of the room in the reflection. Great for when elevator designers want riders to have a wide-angle view for safety. Sometimes you'll spot a small convex mirror in the upper corner of an elevator, letting you check every nook and cranny, or catch someone sneaking up behind you. You've probably seen these mirrors outside too. Ever noticed the big round mirrors at tricky parking garage corners? They let drivers see around bends without moving the car. Same idea inside an elevator. A convex mirror lets your brain absorb more of your surroundings, making a tiny metal box feel safer and less claustrophobic. Now, let's talk about what makes a mirror good or bad. Quality matters a lot. A proper mirror needs pure glass that's super flat, with a flawless sheet of reflective material glued tightly to the back. Most mirrors use a layer of aluminum or real silver for that beautiful, near-perfect reflection. If the glass is warped, even a tiny bit, or the reflective layer is scratched or peeling, the whole thing falls apart. Suddenly, faces look stretched or fuzzy, and reflections can turn into a funhouse mess. Some mirrors end up with crazy patterns. One small scratch can create a streak that looks like a lightning bolt through your face. Another failure point is dirt, scratches, or streaks. If dirt or dust settles on a mirror, it breaks up the smooth surface, scattering the light in every direction, which makes the image look dim or patchy. Scratches cause the same problem. Each little groove disrupts the perfect laser-straight bouncing of light, leading to cloudy or ghostly spots. And fog, just like the mirrors in your bathroom after a steamy shower, can completely erase your reflection. That's because the droplets on the glass scatter incoming light, sending it everywhere but back to your eyes. A pristine elevator mirror looks crystal clear. A steamed-over mirror? Nothing but fuzz. Let's do a little experiment. Imagine peeling back the silver or aluminum coating from the back of a mirror. You're left with plain glass. What does this do? You'd actually see straight through the glass, like a window, with just the faintest of ghostly reflections. That little bit of glass will bounce only a tiny amount of light, making your reflection nearly invisible. The shiny metal layer is the secret sauce. It's what turns a boring window into a mind-blowing mirror. It's wild to think about, right? Just last year, a team of restoration workers found a 200-year-old mirror in a Victorian hotel. When they peeled back its protective cover, the silver had oxidized, turning patchy and black. Holding it up to the light, you could barely see a shadow in the glass. It drove the point home. Without that bright, even layer, a mirror is just see-through glass. Here's something neat. Most mirrors are made using a chemical process called silvering. This means painting a smooth coat of liquid metal, like silver nitrate, onto the back of a polished glass sheet. The thicker and more uniform the metal, the better the reflection. That's why cheap mirrors sometimes look shadowy, with weird dark patches where the coating is thinner. And think about this. Have you ever noticed hotel mirrors that turn a weird yellow with age, or seem to have faded spots you can never wipe away? That's the silvering breaking down over time, usually because moisture or cleaning chemicals have gotten under the glass and corroded the metal. It's a little reminder that mirrors are actually delicate and living, in a way. They need the right care to keep working perfectly. Now, why do mirrors sometimes fail altogether? Besides damage or dirt, environmental conditions matter. Temperature swings cause condensation, which fogs up the surface. Humidity makes sticky fingerprints harder to wipe away. Even tiny particles in the air, like dust or pollution, can settle on a mirror and build up grime that refuses to budge. If you wipe one half of a dirty mirror and leave the other alone, the difference is amazing. One side comes alive with bright reflections, while the other stays cloudy and dead-looking. One more science fact. Mirrors don't just passively bounce back anything. They're picky about direction. If you don't stand in just the right place, with the light aimed just right, you can lose your reflection completely. Try angling yourself to the very edge of an elevator mirror. Your head might vanish while your shoulder stays visible. That angle of incidence law is always in play. That's actually why, if the lighting in the elevator flickers or shifts, your reflection can fade in and out as you move around. There's plenty of mystery left in mirrors, even today. Scientists and engineers keep experimenting with new materials. Some mirrors now use super thin sheets of plastic or even flexible metal backings that let designers make bendy mirrors for futuristic elevators. Others are testing smart mirrors, which can light up, display information, or tint themselves automatically to match the sun outside. The science of mirrors is about light, reflection, and even psychology, because as soon as something goes wrong, our minds start filling in the gaps. But sometimes, real-world accidents and strange stories push those gaps to the extreme. So what happens when elevator mirrors actually fail in life-or-death situations, or when something goes terribly wrong and nobody can explain it? And then, everything changed. Now, let's get into some truly strange, real-world stories about elevator mirrors that didn't do what people expected, and sometimes caused more than just confusion. The first story comes from Tokyo, Japan. In 2015, a downtown office building was buzzing during the morning rush. Workers piled into elevators, swiping ID cards and tapping phones. In one cabin, commuters started noticing something odd. The back wall mirror seemed to swallow their reflections. Several employees described feeling a cold chill. One man even said, "I thought maybe I was in a dream or that I had suddenly become a ghost." At first, everyone blamed the foggy, rainy weather outside. Janitors scrubbed the glass clean, but the problem didn't go away. Eventually, a building engineer removed the panel and found that the mirror was installed backwards. The reflective side was facing the wall, with just plain glass on the surface. For days, dozens of people rode that elevator, feeling invisible or spooked. When workers finally fixed the installation, commuters reported feeling instantly better and less anxious on their rides to work. Jump over to New York City, a city famous for packed skyscrapers and elevators. In 2012, a midtown hotel renovated its entire elevator system, installing sleek, gold-trimmed mirrors. But soon after, guests and staff began posting online about a weird problem. The mirrors only reflected at certain times of day. In the early hours, guests saw crystal-clear reflections. But by mid-afternoon, when the sunlight shifted, reflections faded to strange gray shapes. Hotel staff even received guest complaints about haunted elevators. The maintenance crew did their detective work and found that the new mirrors were actually made with a special tinted, heat-resistant glass, meant to save energy. But the tint was so strong that under certain lighting, it barely reflected anything at all. The guests, expecting perfect mirrors, felt unsettled and even started using other elevators. In an interview, the building's chief engineer admitted, "The glass looked amazing in our catalog, but no one told us about the weird optical tricks. We thought something was haunted." Berlin, Germany, has its own story, tinged with mystery. In 2020, an apartment block saw a string of odd complaints. Every afternoon, the elevator mirror wouldn't show anything except vague shadows, and sometimes it showed nothing at all. Residents felt deeply uncomfortable, especially at dusk. Security footage showed people waving their hands in front of the mirror and laughing nervously. Some superstitious neighbors even placed lucky charms and notes on the elevator floor. When experts arrived, they uncovered an electrical issue. The elevator's main light frequently flickered and went out completely for a few minutes each day. With no light, the mirror lost its power to reflect. Once the light was fixed, the mirror snapped back to perfect clarity. The Berlin apartment manager joked, "We don't have ghosts, just bad wiring." But let's go a bit deeper into each. Imagine you're one of those Tokyo office workers. You step into a crowded elevator, surrounded by silent coworkers, and try to check your tie or fix your hair, only to realize you don't see yourself at all. The moment hangs in the air, a mix of embarrassment and confusion. Eyewitnesses said everyone in the cabin looked at each other with nervous smiles, but no one wanted to be the first to mention the weird mirror. People actually started avoiding that specific elevator, crowding onto others, just to dodge the unsettling feeling. There were rumors of a haunted lift swirling in break rooms and whispered between floors, Even the cleaning staff grew uneasy, avoiding eye contact with the strange, reflectionless glass. In New York, one guest, Tara, said in an online review, "I thought I was losing it. In the morning, I looked sharp as ever. By the afternoon, the mirror made me look like a ghost. I even wiped my eyes just to check if I was awake." Another staff member admitted, "It got to the point where guests actually lined up for elevators that had better lighting, just to snap selfies for their social media." The hotel owner confessed later, "It was supposed to set us apart, but the mirrors became legendary for all the wrong reasons." Engineers brought in extra lamps to try and even out the light, and after some guest focus groups and a lot of trial and error, they finally swapped the tinted glass for standard mirrors. Not only did guest complaints drop, but guests said they felt safe again simply seeing their own faces. Back in Berlin, some residents began keeping the elevator doors open a little longer, waiting for the light to flicker back on before stepping inside. There's actually a video online shot by a resident. You see her step into the elevator, turn on her phone flashlight, and watch her reflection suddenly appear on screen. It's a small but powerful moment, proof that sometimes the secret isn't supernatural, but in something as simple as a burnt-out bulb. All of these stories point to one big lesson. Our brains crave certainty. The instant the environment doesn't match what we expect, our imaginations can run wild. Elevator engineers like Marco Reis, who works in Berlin, put it this way: mirrors are supposed to ground you. Take that away, and people start questioning everything, sometimes even their sanity. And psychologists agree. Dr. Lina Sato from Tokyo says, "It's not just a technical glitch, it's a psychological jolt. You feel like reality is slipping, even for a second." But we also see how quickly these issues can spiral. The prank in the Berlin Mall proves it. Just a can of hairspray turned a fun gag into a string of panicked phone calls and a rapid shutdown. And remember that outlier case from London? For weeks, even after the manufacturer figured out it was a bad mirrored film, rumors of disappearing guests stuck around. The internet turned it into a viral ghost story, with dozens of people sharing their own reflections gone wrong experiences in hotels, malls, and even home bathrooms. All it takes is a misplaced panel, tinted glass, or a light bulb on the fritz. The fixes are simple, but the impact lingers. And for some, those few minutes facing a blank mirror stay with them long after. One worker from the Tokyo office said, "I still check every elevator mirror just to be sure. And sometimes, I wonder if I'll disappear too." So next time you step into an elevator, will you glance in the mirror and shrug it off? Or will you catch your breath and wonder if something's just a little off? Up next, let's dive even deeper. What do scientists say about why our minds react this way? How do our brains actually process mirrors, and why does it matter so much when they fail? We started with a strange moment, an elevator mirror that just didn't reflect. What felt like an almost supernatural puzzle really came down to a few surprising truths about light, mirrors, and our own minds. We expect mirrors to behave perfectly. Most of the time they do. But as we've seen, even something as ordinary as an elevator mirror can go completely sideways when lighting, installation, or design steps even a little bit out of line. Here's the heart of it. Our senses are powerful but easily fooled. You step into an elevator, glance in the mirror, and expect to see yourself. When that doesn't happen, it's like a mini shock for your brain. Every part of your body knows the rule. Mirrors reflect. But just a little dimness, a tiny tilt, or a backwards panel, and suddenly, that rule is out the window. Your mind jumps to overdrive, searching for answers. The mystery isn't about the glass, it's about that feeling, that second of, wait, what just happened? The science behind mirrors is simple on paper. Light bounces in, light bounces out, and you see your reflection. But as this story shows, the tiniest change can shake up your whole experience. Maybe the light is just a bit off. Maybe the mirror's scratched, smudged, or not even a mirror at all. Maybe your brain fills in the blanks with a dash of confusion, surprise, or even fear. Let's not forget what all the real-world cases showed us. Most elevator mirror mysteries aren't really mysteries for long. It's usually something as simple as fog, a bad light bulb, or a panel flipped the wrong way. But the big lesson is how fragile our sense of reality can be, how quickly straightforward things become strange, and how fast our feelings change with them. Every awkward elevator story, every double take at a missing reflection, is proof that even in public spaces packed with rules and routines, a little interruption can make us feel totally off balance. Elevator design isn't just about moving people up and down, it's about how people feel during those few seconds. Mirrors, lights, sounds, they all come together to create a little world inside an elevator. Design choices shape our reactions, comfort, and sense of security. When everything works, we barely notice. But when it goes wrong, we notice instantly. Here's my challenge to you. Next time you're inside an elevator, pause for a split second. Look around. Notice how the lighting feels, where the mirror is, how you feel surrounded or at ease, or maybe how you feel spooked if things seem a little off. Pay attention to how your brain reacts when it sees or doesn't see your reflection. Does it feel like magic or science or something in between? These tiny moments, a flicker of light, a faded image, a strange shadow, remind us that our senses are both sharp and impressionable. It takes almost nothing to fool us, but it also takes just a quick fix to set things right again. Wherever you are, a big city building, a quiet shopping mall, or even a hotel in another part of the world, mirrors are working behind the scenes to change your elevator ride, one reflection at a time. Have you ever had a run-in with a weird mirror, not just in an elevator, but anywhere else? Maybe you saw something that made you doubt your eyes, or felt a little chill when your reflection faded away for a second. If that's happened to you, drop a comment below. Share your own story. I'd love to hear how you handled that moment, and what you thought when science finally solved it, or if it never really did. And that's the thing that sticks with me. Most of the world runs on routines and simple truths we count on every day. But sometimes, even the smallest design detail can pull the rug out from under us, just for an instant. The next time you step inside an elevator and look at your own reflection, remember, you might not always see what you expect. But that's not just a flaw. It's part of the magic of being human. We're all just trying to catch our own eyes in the glass, hoping the world makes sense. Until the mirror blinks and we wonder, for just a moment, what else don't we know?